Thank you, Mr President. As a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, my question is to the Minister for Agriculture, Senator McKensie. Last Friday, I wrote this letter to the Minister for Water Resources, Mr David Littleproud. Dear Minister, I am writing to you to urgently request the release of 200 gigalitres of water from the Commonwealth Environmental Water Reserves currently being held in Hume and Dartmouth dams. The purpose of the release is to allow additional irrigation allocations to water rights holders along the Murray River in southern New South Wales and northern Victoria. Without this water, crops currently in the ground will fail and rural communities will be adversely affected. That 200 gigalitres, Mr Minister, represents a measly 5 to 7% of water in Hume and Dartmouth dams, with spring snowmelt yet to come. As Minister for Agriculture, do you support my request for immediate release of this emergency water to farmers in your state and in New South Wales to stop their crops from dying?
Minister representing the Minister for Water Resources and the Minister for Agriculture, Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr President. I just want to clarify, am I being asked as the Minister for Agriculture or the Minister representing the Minister for Water?
I interpreted that as a question directed as you representing the Minister for Water, with Senator Roberts' opening comment.
Agriculture.
Okay, sorry. I misheard in that case. The Minister for Agriculture, Senator McKenzie.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, obviously, I know it's been a busy weekend for National Party MPs and senators with our federal conference, so I'm sure Minister Littleproud will be getting to the details of your letter, Senator, through you, Mr President, this week. What we do support on this side of the chamber, and I'm sure all of Parliament, is that Australian irrigators, Australian farmers can continue to produce. It is incredibly tough out there, and that is one thing we did hear at the National Party Federal Conference over the weekend, particularly in Queensland, New South Wales and sections of Victoria. The 2 million Australians that live in the Murray-Darling Basin, the majority of those are producing the food and fibre of our country that we export around the world, and they're doing incredibly tough because of the drought. And so whilst the Murray-Darling Basin Plan is in the process of being implemented, 80% of it has been implemented thus far, and there's a lot of discussion around obviously the CHU and how some of those environmental holdings can be used, and a lot of different ideas, I guess, around how to use that water, particularly in tough times such as the drought which we're going through. And those questions should be appropriately addressed to the Minister for the Environment, because, as you know, Senator Roberts, through you, Mr President, it is Susan Ley, the Minister for Environment, that has ministerial responsibility for the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder.
Senator Roberts, a supplementary question.
Mr President, as Minister for Agriculture, do you support my request for immediate release? I got a lot of fluff about Murray-Darling Basin and droughts and so on. I would have thought, Minister, that as Minister for Agriculture, it is your duty to make the urgent and immediate needs of desperate farmers paramount. Why did you not do so?
Senator McKenzie.
Mr President, farmers that are going through drought right now are doing it incredibly tough. That is why our government has put $7 billion worth of measures into the communities, onto the tables of the farmers, obviously having a suite of loans available to our primary producers for restocking and replanting. We've got additional mental health support going into those affected communities. Right across the board, our government's taking the drought incredibly seriously. So for you to stand up and somehow say that we don't get it and we aren't standing by our farming communities is absolutely misrepresenting what the government is doing. It is why the Prime Minister made it his first order of business. It's why he stood with the premiers, Labor premiers and Liberal premiers, when he first became Prime Minister, and called the National Drought Summit, so that together we can underpin the productive capacity of our regional communities who are struggling with drought.
Senator Roberts, final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Twice I've asked, do you support my request? So let me try a second question. Farmers and communities in northern Victoria and southern New South Wales are in dire straits, yet cannot take water from the Murray, while Murray water is currently flooding the Perricoota State Forest. Would you, as Minister for Agriculture, prefer the water to flood the State Forest, or go to farmers to produce a crop this year to save communities and farms from ruin?
Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr President. Just to be crystal clear for the Senator. The Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder is an independent statutory body held under the Minister of Environment's portfolio. I, as the Minister for Agriculture, cannot direct an independent statutory body to do anything other than what it should do, which it is to manage the water it holds according to the Water Act. In terms of my support as Minister for Agriculture for regional communities to have access to water, obviously I want to see them have access to as much water as possible. I wish it would rain. I, want to see dams full. I want to see dams full. I want to see water not just watering environmental assets, but for use but in productive capacity. That's what we all want to see. 80% of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan has been implemented, and I think the discussions at the conference on the weekend were very useful in what other changes we could make around the tube.
Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President.